And welcome to another episode of the InfoTech podcast. I'm your host, Jimmy Huber. And you'll remember that this podcast explores the intersection of business and technology. If you've been listening regularly to InfoTech, you know that we love talking about cybersecurity and AI. But we don't necessarily have a specialist or an expert like we do today. So if you're looking for some tidbits or some insight into the high-tech security world, this is the episode for you. My guest today is John Svazic. He is the founder of EliteSec, which is a high-end security company. And John, I really appreciate the time and for having you on today.
Yeah, no worries, Jimmy. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, you bet. So we were chatting the other day prepping for this episode, and you had one story after another. So I'm sure we'll get to those, which were hilarious to me. But before we do that, why don't you just tell us a little bit about your background, how you started, EliteSec, and kind of what brought you into the industry?
So, yeah, I'll start off with what EliteSec is. So we're a cybersecurity consultancy. We focus on penetration testing specifically. That's our main focus. I've been in the industry longer than I care to admit. I started off, actually, my background is unique in that a lot of people that have been around in cybersecurity for a number of years usually came through the route of help desk and whatever else. I came in as a developer. I actually started about 15 years ago, give or take, probably closer to 20 years now that I'm thinking about it. I actually started working for a SIM vendor as the dev manager for them. So my developer background, I literally started as a developer. That was probably the first 15 years of my career. Did everything from development to architecture to management, and then left a fairly large organization that did some mobile device work. Some folks may remember who they are. I'm not going to get into it, but I left them, went to go work for a startup at the time. And when I was there, because I had a background at a SIM vendor, I was the guy that was like, no, we cannot just use MD5 for our passwords. This is ridiculous. Let's do better. And they're like, oh, hey, we have clients that are asking for who our chief security officer is. Hey, John, you want to be chief security officer? You seem to be the only guy who knows what the hell he's doing. So I said, okay. And that began the kick in the pants, so to speak, of the career in cyber. So then I spent the last, 15, 20 years in cybersecurity, doing quite literally everything from cloud security to corporate security to deciding to do penetration testing, getting into that space, to realizing that pen testing is one of these broken activities where we have a lot of vendors that are out there. Unfortunately, none of them are very good. I shouldn't say none of them. That's unfair. There are some great peers of mine that are out there, but a lot of the clients that I see and work with have either never done a pen test or they've done a pen test with a quote unquote fly-by-night operator, and we're not necessarily satisfied. And you're absolutely right, Jimmy. There's so many stories in between about stuff from that perspective. So I mean, that's kind of the 50,000 foot view, of what I've done. I've been around for a while. I've got a lot of different stories to tell. I did run a cybersecurity focused podcast in the past, but that's been a few years. It was called Purple Squad Security. Look us up on Spotify or wherever great podcasts are found.
We'll put that in the notes for sure. Yeah. You were doing it even before COVID, I think, if I remember right. Quite a few episodes out there that people can. You had repeat guests, I think.
I had a couple of repeat guests that kept coming back, which was great. Right. If I had good rapport with someone, they had interesting stories, we'd bring them back and we'd continue the conversation, see what we can do. Some really interesting stories from people in the field, that's for sure.
Yeah. Well, let's back up a little bit, and I don't want to presume that my audience is super technical. So let's define what a pen test is for somebody that might not know.
So a pen test, and that's a great question, actually, Jamie, because I think this is one thing that a lot of people misunderstand. So a pen test is a lot more than just running a scanner like Nmap or Nessus. to find vulnerabilities on your network. A pen test is a penetration test. The idea is we are looking to find vulnerabilities and exploit them on your system. Not just, hey, you're running some outdated software. It's, hey, you're running some outdated software. Let's see what I can do with that and show you what we can actually get access to because that software is outdated. Or you've created some custom software. It has vulnerabilities associated with it, like a SQL injection, cross-site scripting, whatever it is. Let's show you what we can potentially get because of it. And this could be anything from stealing cookies from another user to dumping your database to gathering whatever sort of data you've stored on your customers, or just even as basic as finding an exposed S3 bucket from Amazon or Google
Sure.
that you've left exposed. It has a whole bunch of tasty data for someone to potentially sniff up and go from there. So pen testing is different than red teaming. Red teaming is what we call adversarial emulation. So if you want to say, hey, Iran is trying to break into my network, what would they do? That's what a red team would do, is actually, okay, let's take on the persona of this type of attacker, look at the tools, techniques, and procedures that they're going to use, mimic that to see how resilient you would be in that regard. That's kind of the basic definition that I use. So there is a difference between the two. I only do penetration testing and don't do red teaming just because I don't have a big enough team to do red teaming.
Sure.
But there is that difference. So for those who are asking, like, oh, are they the same thing? No, they're not really the same thing. The focus is slightly different. Both are still very useful. A lot of times red teaming is where larger organizations are more interested in that because that's the type of adversary that they're worried about.
Sure. So walk us through then an implementation of one of your services then. Say I'm, a small business owner. I've got, 20 employees and the guy in my chamber group just got hacked and like I'm freaking out. It's something that, he's got a similar setup to me. I've got client data maybe that we're using, for marketing or research purposes or whatnot. We haven't got breached yet. I mean, that's more common maybe is you going and cleaning up a mess, but what would EliteSec do to, I guess, put my fears aside, I guess? What's the process look like if there's not a breach, but we want to do our due diligence and maybe prevent some things?
Yeah, if you want to do due diligence, the first question is going to be, okay, so what keeps you up at night? What is it that you want to check to make sure that all the doors and windows are locked appropriately? What are the doors and windows you're worried about? Is it, so we start off with the conversation. Okay, so what exactly do you do as a company? Do you build software? Do you process stuff online through a web store? What is it that you actually have? And then we make a decision. Okay, are we going to be testing the application? Are we going to test your network? Are we going to test? And when we get to the network, is it the internal network at your office, or is it your public facing network? So your external network. And we can do the pen test on that. So we kind of try to gauge what the scope is, work with the client or the prospect to figure out, okay, so what is it that you're looking for testing, and what's the purpose behind it? Are you doing it because you're worried about security? Are you doing it because you want to do your SOC 2 and they're saying, oh, you need to have pen test before you do a SOC 2? Little known secret, you don't. But it makes the job of the auditor easier if you actually have a pen test done. So that's why they usually recommend it. It's not a hard requirement. We recommend it because it's just another layer of security to double check, your posture and everything else. And so based on the type of testing we're going to do, we'll define that scope, and then we'll decide, what's all involved. When we're looking at web applications or external networks, okay, all that's pretty hands off. We'll do all the work with our servers. We'll let you know what the IP addresses of our servers are going to be. So, if there's an alarm that comes in, you can attribute it to us, because nothing's more terrifying than having a test done and then all of a sudden alarms are going off and you don't know who it is.
Yeah, you're creating a problem. Sure.
I've seen that more times than not, unfortunately. And a lot of times it's just bad timing. But the reality is when a pen test is going, what we see is a lot of network operators now start paying more attention to their logs, and stuff that they may ignore during the regular working hours now suddenly become hyper aware of something happening and thinking, oh my God, they're attacking us from China. No, China's always been attacking you. You just hadn't been paying attention. But now that you know somebody's coming into testing this stuff, you want to
Yeah.
see what we're doing,
How
which is great,
convenient.
by the way.
Sure. Sure.
But then all of a sudden, now you're starting to pay attention to all the other crap that's been going on. And so good on us for coming in to help you out. If we're doing like an internal network investigation or a pen test, we'll actually ship you a device to plug into your network to give us essentially internal access without having you punch through firewalls. We'll take care of all of that for you. We try to make it as simple as we can for our clients. And then pen testing will go for a number of weeks. Depends on the scope, the size, and the engagement, all this other stuff. But 2 to 3 weeks is pretty common for an
Okay. So
engagement.
you're simulating kind of a user then on the network to test
Exactly.
things,
So
see what access and those sorts of things. But the business is still operating, right? It's not like you have to take
business
anything
is
down
always
to do that.
operating. Absolutely. Yeah,
Okay.
we can work in production environments. We can work in staging environments. If we're talking about networks, we always want to do production or live environment because that's literally what you want to protect. If you're looking for an application pen test, okay, that's a little different. We understand that some people don't want to hit their live data because they don't want to risk the system going down or whatever else. And NDAs are wonderful things, but they're on pieces of paper. People tend to freak out like, well, what if your data does get leaked and it's because of the pen test? Okay, we do everything in our power to make sure that never happens. But again, it's ultimately up to the comfort level of the client. Our only caveat is if you're going to put us in a staging environment, it has to match production exactly.
Sure.
So this is where,
Yeah, that makes sense.
infrastructure as code comes into play, and you just want to make sure that everything is exactly the same, just to make sure that it's fair. But we leave that up to the client at the end of the day.
Got it. So you got the device, you run all your scanning, you pull in all your data. I assume you then present it to the client. Is this
Mhm.
a, hey, here's your problems, go fix it? Or is it something that then you do remediation and hardening on the back end? Or because I assume you're working with managed service providers, internal IT departments, people that could maybe do some of the work, but then there's kind of a liability piece there too. So what's your approach?
So, in general, if we come across something and it's classified as high or critical, we'll let the client know immediately. We won't wait until the end of the engagement to let them know. And we'll offer support and basically say, we can walk you through how we found this, and we give recommendations on how to fix it. We don't do the remediation ourselves. That's up to the client themselves. We won't take on that responsibility, but we will offer guidance and advice and market as such, right? At the end of
Got
the
it.
day, if we fix it, you haven't really learned anything at that point,
Yeah,
right?
that's a good point. Yeah. So
So
you
it's
want to help them be better at doing what you found, I guess. I mean,
absolutely,
leave them better than
absolutely,
when you found them. Yeah.
exactly. And so the the end goal of any engagement is we're going to give you a report, and that report is going to outline what did we find, how did we find it, how severe is it, how much of a priority is it from our perspective for the business for you to fix it. We'll give recommendations on how to fix the issue at hand, whatever that happens to be. And then, yeah, we give you basically a step-by-step guide on how to remediate it. That's what we call the client report. Then we offer a public report, which is the same thing, but we just drop all the technical details. And this way, the client has something they can share with their downstream clients without necessarily putting anything at risk or requiring an NDA to prove that they've
I got
actually
you.
hired a third party to come and assess their security posture and whatever else. So, but after the engagement, we send the report. People take a look at it. If they have questions, we're always available to actually walk through the process itself. And this is one important thing I think that we want to stress with your listeners, Jimmy. When you hire a pen testing company, you're paying for the report. You're not paying for somebody to mess around in your network, because if you don't understand what it is that they've done, you're not getting any value out of the actual engagement itself. You need to understand, what did they find? How am I supposed to fix it? How did they get it? How did they break in the first place? Where are those weaknesses, and how can I actually fix them? Those are the important things. So anyone that's looking for a pen test provider, always ask for a sample report. Show me what you're going to give me at the end of the engagement, so I
Ah,
know that the value is
yeah.
going to be there for me. Because
Yeah,
if you
you're
get
building
this
an
thing,
asset for them. Sure.
yeah, and if you get something that you can't work with, you've wasted, X number of dollars. That's not what you want to do, right? So always ask up front.
Yeah, that's a great piece of advice because I would think most of the decision makers at these clients aren't technical and they don't know what they don't know. So giving them something
Exactly.
to then provide to their technical people to be like, hey, is this what we need? Because I've got to believe that, cyber insurance scanning tools, I mean, you've got a lot of vendors these days that are looking for much more proof of hardened networks and cybersecurity. Do you, I'm sure you come across that, but are you working on like, certifying these customers, or is it maybe a step towards getting a SOC 2 or a PCI compliance or those sorts of common things, or is it more like project based and incidental?
So a lot of clients that are coming in, they usually fall into a couple of different buckets. Some are coming in because of compliance. They're hunting for a SOC 2. Like I said, SOC 2 doesn't have a hard requirement for a pen test, but it's often recommended. PCI, however, does require proof of a third party pen test. Um, ISO 27001 also requires a pen test, if I'm not mistaken. At least my own vendor, or sorry, my own auditors have asked for a pen test
Hmm.
because we got our ISO 27001. Other clients actually come in because their own downstream clients are asking for proof of a third party pen test,
Ah, I
which is
see.
interesting.
Yeah.
I have some clients that they're working with large enterprise organizations in the financial space, and they'll require a SOC 2. And if they don't have a SOC 2, they'll say, okay, you've got a year to get your SOC 2. But in the interim, we want you to do a third party pen test, and we want to see the results of that before we sign on the dotted line. And
Okay.
so those pressures usually come in and start to add to the necessity for organizations to seek out a pen test org to kind of help them from that perspective.
Sure. Sure. Um, yeah, I think that's all valid. A thing I like about you too, John, is we were talking earlier about kind of how you approach your business and your practices. So we kind of understand, I think, a little bit more about what you do and like the product or the service that you offer. But I know from my perspective, I mean, InfoTech has had clients that have needed remediation, with cyber events, and insurance companies have brought in third parties, to do the pen testing and a lot of similar things to what you're talking about. And you can just tell there's certain things that it's kinda like makes you go, "Oh," like there's gaps between communications, so it's clear that they're juggling, multiple projects. You're working with a team of people, so, if your main contact isn't responding, you've gotta, separate that out with somebody else and then bring them up to speed, so there's some inefficiencies that, while might be okay in certain situations, in a remediation setting, when things you're under the gun and you can't bring the client back up until they're done, it can kinda get pretty frustrating. So share with us a little bit more about your approach and kind of how you handle some of those situations and what the clients can expect.
So, I mean, to be completely transparent, I run the entire business. I do the testing, I do sales, I do marketing, I literally do it all. But I've been doing it for 7 years, so clearly I'm doing something right.
There you go. Cool.
The main reason why I still do it this way is because I only take one client at a time. I don't like to double up on my clients, and the philosophy behind that is actually very simple. If clients are going to trust me to do a very important task for them by finding vulnerabilities, I want to make sure that my focus is just on them during that engagement time. I don't like to have other clients that are distracting me or whatever else. I have heard horror stories from some of my clients who have dealt with other firms. Anything from, yeah, the sales guy was fantastic, but then when the tech person actually did the work, it looked like they wrote something in crayon in the back of a cocktail napkin. And we can't give this to our board. We can't give this to our clients to prove something to them because it's just not fantastic. And this is usually the discussion that I have with prospects when they come and say, wait a minute, you do everything? Oh, I'm not sure. You're kind of small. Okay, well, first of all, I'm not going after Fortune 500s. I like to have sub 500 employee clients. I have some that are larger, don't get me wrong, but I generally find my sweet spot is sub 500, that SME marketplace, not quite startup, not quite scale up, a bit bigger than that, more established and looking for support. Like I mentioned, either they're looking because of a compliance thing, or they're looking because their own clients are pushing it, that sort of thing. That's fantastic. Those are my people. That's who I like to work with. And I explain to them very simply, do you want to talk to the guy who's actually going to be doing the testing, or do you want to talk to the sales guy who's going to promise you the world and God only knows what you're going to get delivered?
Yeah. You're it. Yeah.
I'm the guy. I'm literally, I want to listen to you. What is it that you're looking for? And make sure that I understand what it is that you have, what it is that you need, and that I can deliver something that will be of benefit to you. And this, I'm going to divert us for a second because we're going to get into the heart of why I started EliteSec in the first place, because I always loved this story. I started my company out of spite.
Okay.
And it was, it was very simple. I was working at a company. I was a cloud security architect at the time. We hired a local firm to do a pen test for us. And I'm based out of Waterloo, Ontario. We've got a lot of tech companies up here. Some names will be recognizable to some of the folks that are listening in here. We also have a lot of security companies in the area. We've got the Arctic Wolves, the eCentires. We've got Symantec, McAfee. They've all got offices in and around our area here. So we hired one of these larger companies to do a pen test for us. And at the time, I had just finished getting my OSCP, which is the Offensive Security Certified Professional. That's the pen tester certification. So I was curious. I was not involved in hiring the company. I wasn't involved in the engagement, but after the engagement was done, I asked, can I take a look at the report? I want to see what this report looks like, because I understood what I had to do for my certification for a report. So I was curious, what are people actually selling? So I take a look at this report and I'm like, there's one finding, like, this makes no sense. What the hell is this? And it was something to do with IIS. And it was like an HTTP 400. That was the answer as to the evidence of why this was an actual vulnerability. I said, this makes no sense whatsoever. Not only that, I can't even remember the name of the vulnerability that they claimed it to be, but it was nothing I've ever heard of. So I Googled it. I was like, hey, what is this? Lo and behold, after I Google it, I find the exact phrase. And it happens to point to Tenable's website for one of Nessus's findings. And I'm like, okay. And I start reading it and I start to realize the report matches the page from Nessus exactly. They have literally copied and pasted the result into Word, slapped their name on it and said, here you go. And I went to the guys who had organized all of this. I said, how much do we pay for this? Well, I said, $30,000. Like $30,000. The tool at the time. Now, this is going back a few years. So think about inflation and everything else. I shudder to think how much it would actually cost today. But I said, listen, I can get that same tool for about $7,000 a year at the time. I could run it every single day and still come at a quarter of the price and give the exact same results. I said, this is ridiculous. I was so angry. I literally went home and spoke to my wife and I'm like, listen, I'm going to go start a company. And she's like, you sure? And I'm like, yeah, we're going to see how it goes. And I went and I incorporated EliteSec because in my opinion, it was disgusting that people who needed help with a very important part of keeping your business alive, basically keeping it as secure as possible, are getting fleeced by very large reputable companies and not really getting the value out of it. So I said, no, we're going to do better. And that was, about 7 years ago. I've been running ever since. I was very fortunate to have a solid LinkedIn network that actually helped get me started.
Nice. Yeah, yeah.
And we can get into that later, but that was fantastic. And then, I've been running it ever since, and it's been quite the journey, to put it mildly. It's very true what a lot of people say. You start with an idea and you end up somewhere completely different. I've been true to myself in terms of what I wanted to do with the company, and I've managed to maintain it that way. Um, am I trying to take over the world? No, I'm trying to make sure that we're fitting a gap and providing service to folks who are looking for something a little more honest, a little more true. Because God knows there's a lot of shysters and salespeople that love to sell the FUD
Oh,
out
yeah.
there.
Well,
And
our industry, I think, is plagued with a lack of trust, right? And you
mm,
have to have that in IT. I mean, Infotech's an MSP. We're, I would say, generalists compared to you guys, right? Like we would work with you and bring you in for an incident, but there's still trust even with what we do, resetting passwords and deploying routers and switches and that sort of thing. So even more so when you're dealing with pen tests and this higher level, piece. But I love what you said. I mean, you saw a problem and started a company out of it. I mean, it's similar to the Infotech origin story. I was on, level one help desk for an employer, and their policies and how what we actually delivered to the customers was terrible sometimes. And it planted the seeds for me that like, hey, if I ever did my own thing, like I know what I'm not going to be. I actually want to help people in a meaningful way, and it's worked
yeah,
out there too. So I think you could almost thank these guys to be like,
yeah,
thank you for ripping
exactly.
off my old employer. It ended up working out.
Exactly. And
Uh,
it is what it is. I mean, I'll be honest, the company that we did hire, pen testing was not their forte. I think they literally hired a contractor to fulfill the contract itself.
I see.
Their
Sure.
sales team basically came in and said, "Oh, you want something cyber related? We'll figure it out. Here, just
Yeah.
cut us a
Yeah.
check. We'll figure it out
Yeah.
for
Buy it
you."
first, and we'll figure it out on the back end.
Exactly. So I'm not
Uh,
gonna. That's why I never name them, but I basically say this was the catalyst for me.
sure. Yeah.
Is
No, that's hilarious. I think that's a testament too of just your character, right? Like you do care about people because everyone says that, but a lot of times the actions don't match the words, right? It's
Yeah,
easy to say on a
exactly.
marketing sheet, but you've actually proved it.
Yeah, yeah. I like to
Um,
think so.
yeah, for sure.
AI is probably the biggest thing that we've hit a hurdle with lately. Not from, hey, are you using AI for pen testing? Short answer is no. I've experimented with it. Not a huge fan personally. For me, it's a trust issue. However, we have clients that are integrating AI into their stuff all over the place, which is leading to, hey, can you test our AI integration with this stuff? And it's like, okay, let's figure out what we can do. So there's been essentially a hurdle of, okay, there's a skill gap because this is new technology. There's new techniques and procedures that we need to learn how to do in order to figure out how to properly test these things. So one of the interesting things with regards to cybersecurity in general is we're so bleeding edge all the time that there is no rest for the wicked. We have to constantly be learning new techniques, finding new trainings, finding new tools, and just experimenting. That's the biggest thing. So a lot of the work and the hurdles to overcome is basically, hey, new technology, new techniques. How do you apply it? New products as well. One of the things I love about pen testing is I get to see a lot of different companies and what they do. And it's always interesting because everyone does solve a particular problem that they have come across, and they're trying to come up with a solution to help others that are facing the same thing. So seeing that difference is always unique because everyone does it different, like slightly differently than anybody else. So even if you have people in the same vertical, their implementation is going to be different, which means, hey, even if you've done the same type of testing day in and day out for years, new environment, you may have to switch something up slightly. AI just throws in a new monkey wrench into that machine to figure out, okay, so how are we going to do prompt injection in this particular case? How can I fool the AI into giving me more access than it should? And what does that look like? Hey, I've got to take a look at an RAG, and how do I figure about how we can potentially manipulate that if it's exposed publicly? All these types of things that we never had to worry about in the past. Now we've got to kind of figure that out. And then you still get for example, an internal network test. Oh, hey, you guys are still using NTLM v1 hashes on your network. You really shouldn't be doing that. I had a client recently did an internal test. They were still using NTLM v1, and they came back and they said, thanks for catching that. We thought we turned that off. And the last guys who tested said that we did, but clearly we did not, because I managed to pop one of their service accounts, which happened to be a domain administrator, and that was lights out for them at that point. But it was interesting to hear from them. Yes, we knew about this. Yes, we fixed it. We were told we had fixed it, but you just proved that we did not.
I completely agree that AI is the best and worst thing I think that's happened to us lately, because it's a great tool, but it also masks things, and it's not as good as a human. I think people are jumping to a conclusion a little bit too quick and abdicating to the AI piece. I think it's a good thought partner, but it shouldn't be like a thought leader, right? Kind of like you mentioned, like it doesn't know actually what you're doing. It's just reading text and aggregating data way faster than a human. It doesn't have intuition, instinct, or anything like an actual human does.
No, it doesn't. It's all statistics, right? It's literally parsing what it is that you're asking it to do, and then doing statistical models to figure out what would be the next thing that you're looking to do that matches that question that you've given it. It's not an exact science. This is where we get into things like, the hallucinations of an AI agent and
Sure.
stuff that it's doing. It's all very, very interesting. I have a friend of mine who's got a PhD in data science, and he's the guy that Anthropic and OpenAI would be hiring to help build their models. And he's like, AI is the stupidest thing on the planet right now, and people just put so much faith into it. It actually makes me shudder.
Yeah.
And I think that, like any other tool that we've seen in IT, in the tech space for the last 50 years, it has its place. It is not the panacea people think that it is. It's not going to come and take over your job for everything else. It absolutely has its strengths, and it absolutely has its weaknesses. Understanding what each of those are is where we're not at yet, because people just think everything is fantastic because they've had some very small test cases that work out fairly well, and they think, therefore, everything is going to be fantastic. It's like, okay, I can walk to my mailbox to get my mail every day. That doesn't mean that I'm fast enough to do the 100-yard dash in the Olympics, right?
Yeah.
Or 100-meter dash at the Olympics.
Well, I think this is the worst it will ever be, though, right? I mean, it is definitely on a growth trajectory, but yeah, I mean, the fear around, oh, I'm going to lose my job because AI is just going to take over. I mean, that's valid in certain cases, but I think
Absolutely.
overall, and I think companies are already starting to figure out that, hey, I can't just get rid of a bunch of people. I was talking with another guest the other day and mentioned the fact that, like, hey, it's not a matter of how many people can you replace with AI. I think it's more about how much more can I do with my current team, right?
Yeah,
It's just a tool.
absolutely. And I think that's the key. I know that there is a lot of people out there that are, oh, we can just replace all the pen testers with AI and it'll just find everything for us. You might be able to replace things like Qualys or Tenable with AI because it'll be able to do a deeper dive to find vulnerabilities. I know Microsoft had their massive patch Tuesday yesterday and dropped like 400 something vulnerabilities, likely because they did some AI scanning. Okay, that's fantastic. All right, that's supplementing the tool. Are all of them valid? Probably not.
Hmm.
I would say most of them probably are valid, but how deep are they? How many of
Yeah.
them are just surface level things that weren't necessarily caught before? And does that mean that AI is better than a classic vulnerability scanner? Not necessarily, because chances are you gave AI access, way more access than what you gave something like a Nest or a Tenable or a Qualys scanner. Not saying that those tools are flawless either, but it's apples and oranges a lot of the time. And people are look at the raw numbers and this is so much bigger, therefore it's better.
Yeah.
No, it's not.
Yeah. It's
It's not
quality,
always
not
true.
quantity.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
quality, not quantity.
Well, either way, I got to think that you've got some job security, at least for the foreseeable future, with as many changes that are coming out.
I like to believe so. I mean, that's ultimately my goal is it's always a question of trust, right? And that goes for AI and, live operators as well, right? You have to have faith and trust in someone that's doing security for you, just like you have to have faith and trust in someone who's setting up your networks, if you're an MSP, right?
Sure.
There has to
Oh,
be
yeah.
that trust relationship there. And I think that's going to keep us around longer than not.
Yeah.
And
I completely agree.
yeah,
Yeah. It's still about the relationship. And I think that holds true no matter what new whiz bang AI tool is out there. I think even it's going to make the relationship even more important.
I
Because
agree.
it's authentic, right? It's not an artificial entity tool. John, before I let you go, I'd love for you to just riff a little bit on some advice that you might have for the young entrepreneur or the business leader that's maybe not only just getting into the field but realizing, hey, I do like security. I think probably about half the interviews InfoTech does. Hey, what do you like? It's security. People are interested. They want to help people in that way. You've got a ton of experience. What would you say to them, or maybe yourself? 8, 10 years back.
Uh, Probably the biggest thing that I would say is don't believe Hollywood.
Yeah,
A lot of people, when they say, I want to get into security, okay, what do you want to do? I want to hack computers.
yeah.
Okay, what does
I want
that
to be a
mean to
hacker.
you? I
Yeah,
want to hack. I want to, click, 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 click. I'm
get
in.
in the mainframe.
Okay, I'm in
Yeah,
the
just
hack
type
the
really
Gibson.
fast.
Exactly. Hack the Gibson. No, no, no. That's not how this works. Security is one of these fields that you never stop learning. So if you're not willing to put in a massive amounts of effort to keep your skills up to speed, you're going to be left behind pretty quickly, right? You can get into a niche, like specifically if you want to get into offensive security, like pen testing, red teaming, whatever you want to call it. There's a lot of work there. But on the blue team side, the defensive side, there's also that same amount of work that you've got to do because you need to understand what are the attacks that people are using? What are the defenses you need to apply? And then you've got to wade through the usual BS of here's all the vendors that are giving you promises about the world. They absolutely, we will save you left, right, and center. But it's going to cost you, an arm, a leg, and your firstborn. Right.
Sure,
And how do
sure.
you balance that? And how do you justify this to a business? Anyone who wants to get into security in general, work on your communication skills. Make sure that you understand how you can share the information with someone. Don't be technical. Talk about it from a business perspective. How is
I
this
love
going to
that.
impact the business? Build those relationships. People inherently distrust the security guy.
Yes.
Always, because
Yeah.
you can
100%.
read my emails. I can, but I hate to tell it to you. You're not that interesting. So
Yeah.
I'm not going to,
Not
you
enough time
know,
in the day to read all your emails.
I don't have
Yeah.
I don't have the time. You're not that interesting. We only ever really go into your emails because someone may have done something wrong and we're looking for that. But
Sure.
guess what? We're not going to look
Sure.
through every email. We're going to look for keywords that we're going to be looking for investigation. So interpersonal relationships, being able to communicate to non-technical folk, super, super important. If you want to get into the field and actually start a business, first and foremost, be true to yourself. Understand what it is that you're good at and try to communicate that to your potential clients. Having a strong network is super important when you're first starting out. If you're just starting out cold, it's tough because there's so many other businesses out there that are selling services. Someone's always going to undercut you. I know I've had a few clients that have come in and said, well, these guys can do it for cheaper. And I said, well, that's wonderful. You know what you get with us. I don't know what you
Yeah.
get from them. It's up to you to
Sure.
decide what's more important to you.
Yeah.
And sometimes that works, sometimes it doesn't. But you know what? You don't chase people that aren't interested in it and then start the company to make as much money as possible. God knows if it did that, I would have had a fleet of underpaid offshore pen testers to do the work. But that
Yeah.
wasn't why I started the company, right? So
Yeah.
I started with a particular focus. I make enough to keep my family going, and I'm satisfied with what I've done. I can look back on my career at this point and say, I'm really satisfied with what I've done.
That's
And
really cool.
I think that is probably the number one thing that you want to always keep in mind if you're going to get into something like this. And it doesn't matter if it's security or you want to start an MSP. You started this for a reason. Do you understand what that reason is? And are you keeping true to it as you move forward?
Yeah, and I think that's super rare, John. I mean, a lot of people I think go through their career and have regrets. I mean, we all do, but to be able to start and build something and look back and say, "Hey, I'm proud of what we've accomplished." I mean, that's really huge. If people want to get a hold of you, John, I mean, I'm sure if you've listened this far, if something has resonated with you. You come across as a really genuine guy, and I've enjoyed getting to know you here today. What's the best way? We'll put some stuff in the show notes, but how do people reach out?
If you guys want to reach out, go to the website, elitesec.io. We have a contact page there. You can look me up on LinkedIn. Please, please, please leave a message in your invite if you do want to connect so that I know that you're genuine or you found me via the podcast or something like this.
There you
No
go.
offense to all the salespeople listening, but I'm not interested in your stuff. I'm of the opinion that if you have technology that's interesting to me, I'm going to find it and I'm going to approach you. Don't
There you
come
go.
running to me. I will find you, or at least I'll look your stuff up. But I'm not. I don't want to get on a phone call with you.
Yeah,
If
no,
I
I
think it,
totally get it.
yeah, if
Yeah,
it's
there's
important,
enough.
that's fine.
What's the term? Being pitch slapped, I think is the new thing now.
Exactly.
It's yeah.
Exactly.
So
Yeah, but
cool.
LinkedIn or on the website itself is probably the easiest way to get in touch and connect.
Okay.
And yeah,
Awesome. Well, it's been great talking to you today. Like I said, I think people will receive a lot of information from you and a lot of tidbits that they can pull out. I know I learned something today that I didn't know before. And so I really appreciate your time. We'll have to have you back on as things continue to evolve, especially with AI in the cyberspace. There's always new stuff to talk about. We'll have to hit you back here in a few months and go from there.
sounds good. Yeah, it's been a pleasure, Jimmy. I appreciate this.
Yeah, you bet. Have a great day.
Yeah, you too. Take care, everyone.